All right, guys, welcome back to Chess with Cody, where I help you become an intermediate chess player. So today we're doing another subscriber game. So I'm rated around like 16 to 1800, depending on which rating you look at. And this series is based on you guys sending me the games that you play, and then I'm looking through them step by step, and I'm going to highlight what I like, and then highlight maybe some things you guys could work on for next time. So if you have a game you want to send me, just email me at chesswithcody@gmail.com. It's totally free. You're getting a free chess lesson here, so take advantage of the opportunity. So today we're reviewing a game by a subscriber named Tucker. He's rated around like 1200 to 1300 range. So let's dive in. And this was a daily game, so there was no time pressure at all. He was playing with a friend. And let's take a look. Also, guys, I got a new camera angle here, so let me know, do you like this better? Is there any way I can make it better? Let me know. And stay till the end of the video if you want to catch the two main takeaways from this game, as well as my prescription to Tucker on how to improve. Let's get started. So it starts off with King's Pawn, normal developing moves, and here basically Tucker said that he normally plays Vienna Gambit. And one of his questions to me was whether he did the right setup here, because apparently he hasn't faced this move before, this c6 move by black. And he was wondering, was this still the right thing to do? Well, first of all, let's back up a step here. So, off the bat, this is good. He's developing pieces, controlling the center. So the question is this move still justified? I actually looked through with the computer on this because I'm not familiar with the Vienna Gambit. I haven't played it too much, so I had to consult the computer, and the computer preferred the move d4, but it's really confusing why. I mean, I looked through this a lot with the computer, and even after looking at all the different lines, like it's not clear to me like why this is better than f4. So I actually think that Tucker did do the right thing in terms of sticking to the types of positions that he normally plays. So, there's nothing wrong with this as is. Like if they take your pawn, it's okay, because the idea is like later on, let's say they just do whatever. Later on, you're going to probably get to this. They can't defend like this because your knight defends. So, something like this. I like that Tucker chose to stick with his familiar position. So let's continue. Okay, now in this moment, Tucker decided to play e5. At first glance, I really like this move a lot. It seems super dominant. Like, okay, we're kicking their knight. We already have two pieces developed. Now their knight has to move around. We're going to develop all of our other pieces soon. So like, something like this, whatever. But then I gave it a little more thought, and it's possible that this pawn might be hard to defend long term. And I also saw how it played out in the game. So black played this little tactic, pinning the pawn to the king. And, they do have to go knight back. So, look how passive black is here. So this does look pretty good for white, but the problem is it might be hard to defend this pawn long term. If you try to defend with d4, they can maybe try to undermine that with c5. So we'll see if Tucker can hang on. But so this is what happened in the game. And yeah, I like it so far. I think instead of e5, alternatively, some ideas I thought of were like knight f3, then d4 or d3. You could do any one of those moves in any order. The computer liked d4 here, I think just getting a really big center and preparing to pick up this pawn. So that was probably the strongest move. But I like, everything went okay here after e5. The knight goes back. And Tucker does the right thing and continues the development, getting ready, getting all the pieces out, getting ready to castle one way or the other. I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. So now black makes a very aggressive move here. So black goes g5 in this position. And I want you guys to pause here and think about what are the long-term implications of this move, both for black and for white, because I think there are some long-term implications. So first, let's talk about black. So once they thrust a pawn like this, it basically means that their king can't be safe if they castle kingside. So I would assume in this position that they would be planning to castle queenside. Although because they push this pawn, that also might not be very safe. So in general, this kind of calls black's king safety into question for the long term. Now, for us as white, it also poses some king safety issues because let's say we decide to castle kingside. These pawns are pretty close to knocking on our door, and maybe black can get a rook on the open file and come murder us. So I would be very hesitant to castle kingside when black has two pawns so close to us like this. So this pawn's ready to go here, and black might just castle queenside, and then I don't know if you guys know this, if you follow the channel or not, but in opposite side castles games where my king is on one side and their king is on the other, the dynamic is you're both flinging pawns at the other opponent's king trying to go kill them. So yeah, for us, what this really means to me is maybe I should castle queenside in this position. So now, question for you guys. So black is threatening to play g4. Should we stop this? Maybe we should play h3. Maybe we should move the knight preemptively. What do you guys think we should play here, and why? So Tucker decided to go h3, which I agree with, because we don't want this to just come knocking on our door and have to move the knight. There's not really a great square for the knight to move. So I think it makes sense to defend it. Now the computer found like some crazy tactic thing where like the knight can come to e4, and there's maybe like, I don't know, basically white's development is just so advantageous here that knight e4 works. So even if they come antagonize you, like, there's just checks, and then, things get pretty ugly for black. But that's very high level, and don't worry about it. So yeah, I like Tucker's decision here, defend against the threat. Now black plays a6. How do you guys feel about this move? What do you think it accomplishes? What do you think it accomplishes, and is it good or not? So to me, this is very inefficient. I don't see the point of it. If they wanted to antagonize the bishop, they could do that right away. Although again, I don't know where the king is going to be safe long term. So yeah, instead for black, I would have liked to see a developing move. So, it is hard for them to develop their pieces. Like, where does this knight go? It's boxed in. Where does this knight go? It can't go to the center. So, I might have brought the bishop out here. I don't know, maybe something like this, play d6, and then we trade the queens, and then here, I'll show you. So maybe something like this, and then we pick up the pawn, and everything's equal. And black is starting to kind of mobilize their pieces. Something like this is what I would have liked to see from black side. But they play a6. Now let's take a brief stock of the position. So white has developed 4 pieces, 3 minor pieces and the queen. Black has only developed the queen. Black's king safety long term is sketch because they've thrust this pawn. They've thrust both of these pawns. The dark squares over here are weak. Overall, I'm liking white's position here a lot. The only thing we have to be a little worried about is if we castle kingside and then they come attack us, there could be some threats and some danger there. But overall, like in this position, if it's me in a normal game, I don't see any immediate way to exploit black's position. So my game plan would be to complete the development. So I would go like pawn d3 or d4, and then bring the bishop out, and then probably castle queenside. That would be my plan in this position. So why don't you guys pause? What would you play here? So Tucker decided to play a4. I guess he was worried about some sort of something here. How do you guys feel about a4? As you can probably sense, I'm not a huge fan of a4. But why don't you guys pause and think about like what are the reasons why? Why is this maybe not the best move? So I think there's 2 problems. One is it's unnecessary and inefficient, and 2, I think it undermines our king safety long term. So like I mentioned before, I don't think this b5 push is really a threat. Like the bishop can just step back, and so there's no real issue. But second of all, once you've thrust this pawn, now if you castle queenside, it's just much less safe. And black can maybe like rip it open and then attack with a rook down the file. So I would have liked instead, like I said, pawn up, bishop here, castle queenside. That would have been my plan. I also refer to these development type moves as, I call them like forward progress moves, where it's about your development. So like if there's nothing concrete here to like exploit something in their position, if you just do like d3 and like bishop d2, like these moves are just very solid and they're making forward progress on your development, which is just generally advantageous. So if there's nothing concrete to exploit, make a forward progress move, continue the development. Play continues. So black goes b6. I don't really see the point of this move other than I guess they're trying to develop the bishop here. If it were me, it is a little hard to develop as black here. I probably would have gone like d6 maybe. That way you can get the bishop out and then the knight has like a square to go to. So yeah, black needs to continue the development here, even though it is awkward. So b6, and then Tucker plays d4, which I like a lot. We're striking sort of in the center. We're claiming some space in the center and getting ready to develop the bishop and getting ready to hopefully castle queenside. Black develops the bishop. Now this move, I have some problems with queen to e4. So why don't you guys pause? Tell me there are some advantages, so it's not all bad. So, pause. What are the advantages and disadvantages and potential dangers of the move queen e4? So in general, you pretty much never want to walk into a situation where you're walking into an X-ray attack. So if black moves this pawn, this bishop would be hitting our queen. That's an X-ray attack. This is just very problematic from a tactics perspective because even though right now, first of all, black can't play pawn to c5 because we can take the bishop. The bishop is undefended. So the pawn is kind of pinned right now. But later in the game, that might change where maybe the bishop is defended by the rook and maybe there's some other things going on. Like maybe we have a piece on this square and all of a sudden they play this pawn hitting like our piece that's here and hitting our queen, and they have basically like a double attack and we're losing material. In general, you really want to avoid X-ray attacks. That being said, in this position, it's not as terrible because, like I said, this pawn is pinned since the bishop is undefended. Now, you might have been wondering, oh, well, can't they fork us? Then we can take with en passant. And even if they take, we take, everything's pretty much okay. So we're doing okay. But this goes back to what I said about the forward progress moves, though. So, like, we still have work to do. So, like, this bishop needs to come out. We still need a castle one way or the other. Then maybe you start doing stuff like this. Because, like, this move doesn't accomplish anything in the immediate term. There's no actual threat right now. So we sort of lost a tempo where instead we could have made like pure forward progress. Just go like bishop d2 and then castle, and then do funny business. So yeah, this is a pretty subtle thing, but this is kind of what separates, probably like 1200 range to more like 14, 15, 1600. Now black plays b5 in this position. And at first I thought this was a bit of a blunder, but I think it's actually okay for black. We'll take a look at it. So pawn takes pawn takes, we trade the rooks, bishop takes. Now in this position, there's sort of a tactic. See what are some good options here for white. So this pawn is still kind of pinned because our queen is attacking this undefended bishop. So Tucker decides to play knight takes b5, which is reasonable. There's a problem with it though. Bishop takes b5 would be a little bit better. So in this position, black has a nice follow-up. So why don't you guys pause the video and tell me what is the move here for black. So the move is queen to b4 check, which is what happened in the game. So queen b4 check, now forking the king and the undefended bishop on c4. So why don't you pause here to see, is there any defense for white? Because if we just block normally, black's going to take our bishop. So what should white play in this position? So Tucker finds probably the best attempt at a defense, which is knight to d2, defending the bishop. And it seems like everything's protected here, but there is actually a problem, and through the right move order, black wins material here. So black to play and win material. Pause the video, tell me what are the moves. So if black plays pawn takes knight, white plays queen takes bishop, and then black scoops up another piece, and that's basically the end of the continuation, and black is up a piece at the end of that. So takes. Now you might have been wondering, oh, well, can I take the bishop, the knight? But after this pawn just recaptured, the queen is now defending the knight. So that is the problem with knight takes c5. Bishop takes c5 would have been a better chance because now there's no check here. Apparently the computer found that this is still problematic because I guess black can go knight f6. And this is pretty complicated, but if you take, then they're going to take, and then at the end of this they win the bishop, and there's no longer a queen here to exploit a tactic. So yeah, it works for complicated reasons. If the queen drops back, again, now there's no longer a pin, so they take. So it's still problematic. I don't think anyone at this level would have exploited that, but you know, showing you anyways. So Tucker plays knight takes b5, and now this queen check comes in, and luckily black plays a very passive move, and Tucker's not immediately punished. But let's also talk about something else in this position, which is that we shouldn't have been vulnerable to this check in the first place. So if instead of a couple of inefficient moves we made previously, if instead we had developed our bishop and castled, like I mentioned before, this check just wouldn't have been an option. We would have been much safer, much less vulnerable. And there were two inefficient moves, in my opinion. So when we went pawn to a4, that was inefficient move number one. And when we did this queen move, that was inefficient move number two. And that's how long it would have taken to develop the bishop and then castle and be safe. So that highlights the importance of development and getting your king safe, getting all the pieces out. These things snowball. You know, you might think like, oh, this is just a boring move. This is just a boring move. Like, why don't I just come and attack? But actually, these things are really important, and leaving these vulnerabilities in your position allow your opponent to cause problems that shouldn't be there. So that is one of the main takeaways of this game, is to really finish the development. So Tucker did a good job getting most of the pieces out, but there were a couple things that still needed to happen. Okay, so the check comes in, Tucker blocks, and then black should have played pawn takes, which again we looked at this line just a second ago, and black goes up material here. Tucker's opponent did not see this, lucky for him. So instead they played a6, super passive. I mean, you gotta try to like coordinate all these pieces. You know, it is difficult to find a move here. I would maybe have gone like queen a5 because now we're defending the bishop. So now this pawn is free. So remember, this was pinned before because the bishop was undefended. By defending it, now the pawn is free. So we are actually threatening to take this knight immediately. So, you know, maybe something like this. It's still bad. You know, this comes in. I don't think you can take. You might get mated if you take. You're almost mated here, like check. It's sketchy. So you probably have to like go here. It's bad. Well, all right, yeah. I don't know what black should play here. But again, this is a consequence of black not developing all game. So you reap what you sow, unfortunately, in this case. So play continues. Now Tucker goes for this fork, which I thought was going to be great and just be a free piece. So he snags the bishop, but black found a really nice move here to trap the knight. So the knight can't escape, which kind of equalizes that fork. So good job by black. And Tucker does a good job to realize, okay, well, I'm losing the knight. Like, what's going to be the best move somewhere else on the board? How can I make progress? and snatches up this pawn, which is really nice because not only are we getting a pawn, but it is kind of removing another like shield around the king. It might seem like, oh, that's kind of far away, but it kind of, it could be another entry point for the queen or other pieces. So this is very good for white. Now from here, Tucker does a really nice job of finally finishing the development in the next few moves. So step 1 is castle, which I like. One thing I'd like to flag, though, is compare this castle versus if we had castled queenside earlier in the game. So us castling here now is good. The rook is on a semi-open file. The king is safer in the corner. The problem, though, is these pawns are pretty close to us, and this could be a fatal attack potentially in some scenarios. So, we're doing okay here, but it is a little bit sketchy to have these pawns so close, ready to bust down the door. But overall, good on castling, better late than never. So play continues. Now, Tucker goes here, developing the knight and preparing a square for the bishop. Black develops, attacking the knight. The knight is defended by the bishop, but you got to be a little careful. This could be interrupted potentially. So you have to ask yourself. So Tucker decides to develop the bishop to d2, which is great, finally getting the last piece into the game. However, you are relying. Well, question to Tucker: did you calculate? Did you really test? Like, okay, is there any way for black to interrupt this protection of the knight? Because there will be some positions where maybe they could throw in a move like this or something that blocks, that severs the protection, or like some other tactic where like they can't do this right now because of my queen defending the square. But some other tactic where they can come antagonize your defender and chase away the defender and then win this piece. So in this position, it is okay. But you have to really calculate. And in general, I'm trying to instill in you guys like the gut feelings of intuition that you should be like, ooh, wait, I got to make sure that this is all good. So, it might have been safer just to go like b3 just to protect the knight and then bishop out or something like that. So, there are other ways to do it. But yeah. So bishop d2, that was the best move. And black plays one of the moves that I was kind of talking about, where now they've disconnected the bishop's defense of the knight. So now the knight is really hanging. Why don't you guys pause? What would you play here as white? So if it were me, I probably would play b3 here and just defend the knight. Just play solid. They're attacking our knight. Let's defend. Tucker went for a more aggressive route, which was the best move according to the engine. So bishop to a5 check, and then king comes to e7. The problem, though, you have to be really careful with this. So this move has the similar problem where like this bishop is defended by the knight, but the knight is also still hanging. And if you have to move the knight, then the bishop's hanging. There's a lot of dependencies here that could potentially be exploited. So Tucker, if you calculated, like if you really looked deep before playing this move and you were like, no, I think this is the right thing, then good job. If you just saw, oh, I have a check, let me check him, and didn't think through this deeply, then be a little more careful in the future because these can be very problematic scenarios. So now in this position, this is kind of what I was talking about. So king is attacking our undefended bishop. The queen is attacking our undefended knight. What do you play here as white to save the position? So it's not easy here. The computer found this crazy thing, which is like they wanted bishop h5, which apparently like, I don't know, the queen's gonna, there's some sort of like mating threats and whatever if you're like superhuman. But the move that Tucker found, which I thought was a great move, was bishop takes. And somehow everything is defended here. And after the pawn recaptures and we recapture, everything is defended. So it worked out, but it was a little bit like, ooh, are we okay? So these things can be a little sketchy. Now black found a really good move here with queen to c6, basically forcing the queen trade. So our queen can't really go anywhere. But Tucker doesn't just trade queens blindly. So he thought like, okay, what is the best move in this position? How can I exploit or maximize my chances here? And went for bishop to b4 check, which I like a lot. King moves. And again, we could trade queens, but Tucker was like, okay, I see a good move. Let me look for a better move. And went for this knight check. And if the knight moves, you have to, black has to be careful. There's some forking ideas. And then after like a trade, we would win the rook, although they win our bishop. But, you know, there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts here. So in this position, after we check, black takes. Now, what would you play here as white? There's a few different captures. So which one is the best one? So Tucker played queen takes queen, which is also what my first thought was when I was going through this game. And it seems reasonable. We're able to recapture the bishop. The problem is now black captures our free pawn here. And this pawn's hanging. The knight's pretty active. It's still a good position for us. We're up one pawn. But the better, more precise move order was queen takes bishop, because now black can't just take here because we have pressure on the knight. So after takes, now in this position we can just solidify our pawn chain and we're not losing any material at all. So this would have been slightly better. For some reason this was like a hard move to see. I don't know, it seems weird that like you can do this. So overall I like Tucker's play here. Well done. And so yeah, this is how it played out in the game, and black was able to scoop up a pawn. So from here on, we're going to see a really nice finish to this game by Tucker. So first move, rook a1, getting the rook on the open file. And can you guys tell me, why can't this knight take on c2? So Tucker's created this threat of rook check, and then scooping up the rook for free. So this is a skewer. Let's say they take, check. Thank you very much, right? So black saw this and went king to f7. Now black is threatening to take this. So Tucker played c4. Black attacks our rook. Rook to a3, attacking their knight. Now knight d2, attacking c4, which would also be forking the rook and the bishop. So Tucker decides to move the pawn. I wonder if maybe, I haven't looked at this with the computer, but I wonder if b3 is maybe stronger here. I guess the knight can come in. Yeah, I like moving it is also fine. Black goes knight to c4, attacking our rook and our pawn. Tucker goes rook a7, attacking their pawn. So black defends it with the king. And now our pawn is hanging, so b4. Black goes rook to d8. I'm not sure how effective this is, but it's also hard to find moves for black. I'm not sure where they should go. Ideally, they could get this rook to help stop the passed pawn, but they can't because the bishop controls that square. So maybe if I were black, maybe I would take and then go like rook b8, something like that. You could also start to like worm your king in here maybe. And now Tucker starts to push the passed pawn. So there's a saying, passed pawns are meant to be pushed. And we're starting this procession, and it's very hard to see how black is going to stop it. So black starts off with knight takes bishop. Now, which pawn would you guys take with and why? So this is a very tough question, and Tucker did the intuitive thing, which I agreed with on my first glance, which was e takes d6, so the e pawn takes. Because now we have a connected pawn chain. Also, these pawns are further from the king. But then I thought about it more, and I thought, well, if you take this way, it does give up this pawn, but then the king is farther away, and maybe we can promote this way. But the computer actually said that this move was the best. So I kind of faked you guys out a little bit. It's a very complicated position here. But yeah, e takes d is apparently the best move. And yeah, the king, but both players played very well here. So the king now is coming to infiltrate. and Tucker decides to come and defend here. If you push right away, then you'd get something like this, and then you can't really make progress here. If you do this, they just take. So you're kind of stuck here as white. They're going to take you, and then, they're going to maybe come make their own pass pawn and win, or that they're going to, promote this guy. So not so easy. Not so easy to win here. So Tucker played rook to c5, defending the pawn chain. Rook b8. Good move, pressuring. Push. Push. Now, what would you guys play here as white? So Tucker found b7, which I approve of, continuing this procession of our passed pawn. And it's hard to find a move for black now. I mean, you can't take this pawn. It's defended. Everything here is defended. You can't just run away because we have some tactics. We're going to win. So yeah, if the rook runs away, then we have this tactic where we go rook c8. And now if they take, then we're going to promote. And if they do nothing, then we're going to promote this way. So we're shielding the promotion square. This is a very common tactic that you should remember. So the king goes here, but now you have to find the way to break through. How are you going to promote this pawn in this position? It's going to be sort of a longer term plan. So you can't just go rook to c8 right away. They're just going to take you. So what do you do instead? So Tucker found c6. Brilliant move, in my opinion, giving up the pawn. So if the pawn takes, then we can push, and now we have two threats, and this should be enough to win. Because then we push, black makes whatever move, and then we go rook c8. And if they take our pawn, we take their rook. If they take our rook, we promote. So winning position. But black didn't do the obvious thing. Black took the other pawn. Took the pawn on d6. And now, what do you play as white? So if you said take the pawn, unfortunately that is not correct, because then black takes your rook and is able to defend both pawns from promoting. So give it one more try if you want to find the best move in this position, the beautiful finish that Tucker found to this game. And I'll show you one last wrong answer first. So if you said rook to d7, unfortunately this is also not correct, because the king takes our c6 pawn. And what do you do here? There's no follow-up. You basically have to run away, and they're just going to scoop your pawn. And, I mean, you can come chase their pawns, but we want to promote. We want to promote our pawn, and there's a way to do it. The move is rook to c8. And you see here that black resigned. And the reason is if black takes, we promote with a queen. If black takes here, we're up a rook. And if black does nothing... if they don't, I mean, no matter where they move the rook, we're just going to take it on the next turn. And we're up a rook. And this is game over. Now, on my first run through of the game, or through the first half, I didn't look at Tucker's profile or anything. I saw these ratings, but those aren't necessarily accurate because these are daily games. And I thought to myself, it's probably 1200-ish ELO. And then I saw the second half and I was like, it might be more 1300-ish. He did some pretty good stuff here. And then I stalked his profile, and that's basically his range. So his peak rapid rating was 1330, and he's currently in the 1200s for his rapid rating. So nailed the ELO guess. And yeah, Tucker, I thought you did a great job this game. And we're going to go over now what are the key takeaways, and what is my prescription for you to keep playing and keep improving at chess. Here are the two main lessons that I want Tucker and all of you watching to take away from this game. So the first one is to make sure you keep a safe space for your king. So in this game, I do think Tucker kind of violated this rule where the king isn't going to be super safe over here because of these pawns. So thrusting this pawn to a4 sort of violated this, because now also we might not be that safe if we castle queenside. It's much better to, I'll just play some moves to show you guys, to castle. And now we have our little wall here, and we can also play this move, and then we're really safe, where now our king is defending all of these pawns, and our king also isn't sitting on a diagonal that later in the game might be open to checks and whatever. So Yeah, let's make sure we keep a safe space for the king. That's number one, king safety. Number two, make sure we complete the development all the way. So we didn't complete the development until, what is this, move 21? A little late, so there were a couple inefficient moves. So A4, in addition to being a bit problematic for the king safety, was also just a little inefficient. Instead we could have gone like D4 and then bishop out and then castle, which is probably what I would have opted for myself. So those are the two main things. Otherwise, I thought you played great. And now we're going to talk about my prescription for what to do to improve. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Like things are going really well. I would say like your board vision is very good. You saw a lot of tactics. You exploited this knight taking the pawn here. So it seems to me like you're probably already doing chess puzzles on a regular basis, which is good. I think everyone should be, if you're trying to get better at chess, you should be doing like 10 to 15 minutes each day of solving chess puzzles. It could be whatever you want. And then lastly, I would recommend watching some Akobian videos. So this is Grandmaster Varujan Akobian. If you just search on YouTube, GM Lectures Akobian, it's I'll put the spelling on the screen. He's amazing. So like most of my chess knowledge comes from him. And then in more recent years, also from Naroditsky. I've basically watched every single Akobian lecture. And yeah, he's an amazing teacher. And those videos are a little slower format where you really have to think, and he guides you through step by step through grandmaster games that he's played or through other famous games. And he asks you like, okay, now in this position, what do you do and why? And he's like, oh, this was the best move because of these reasons. So he walks you through, and in his games, it really highlights the importance of efficient development. You'll see in some games where like black starts to fall behind in development, and then he gets this really big attack and then wins, or vice versa. So yeah, highly recommend checking out those videos. There's other great lectures as well. So those are on the St. Louis Chess channel on YouTube. If you just literally search on YouTube like GM lectures, you'll see a bunch of great stuff. And those longer form going through actual games where you see like a high level middle game, a high level end game, and see what the players are thinking about is very, very helpful. And I'm hoping also that my channel will kind of bridge the gap too of like, I'm kind of a more middle tier player. And so I can try to break things down into something that makes more sense to you guys, since, I'm not a GM. So maybe my language is a little more at your level. I don't know. But that's it for this video. Tucker, I hope that was helpful. Let us know in the comments if you have any questions or if any ideas resonated. Let us know how you're feeling. And for everyone else, if you have a game you want to send, email me at chesswithcody@gmail.com. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot.